school-aged children who are overweight.
You are listening to the Critical Mass Radio Show, Orange County's business talk show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
And welcome to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi. This is episode number 1059. And for those of you that are listening to us live on the OC Talk Radio stream or maybe on Facebook Live from OC Talk Radio's Facebook page, this is our last show of calendar year 2017. And I'm so excited to be ending the show with my friend, Wayne Pinnell. He's the managing partner for Haskell White. You know, all firms, regardless of their size, do deserve consideration and the highest level of service. And I know that Haskell White, they build on the success by providing their clients with true value of their varied experience. That's why I've asked the managing partner, Wayne Pinnell, who's been on this show before, and as you guys know, he's in our book, the Guiding Principles book. This is in its third. Wayne is in here, and I'll find the page, and maybe we can refer back to that. But he's a repeat guest, and we don't have a lot of guests back a second time. But I wanted him to come on and just kind of talk about all things kind of end of the year and a bit about his organization. But before we get there, I'm going to start by asking Wayne, tell us a little bit about yourself. Any interesting stories or something you want to share with our audience of business owners?
Interesting stories. You know, it's I'm 30 some odd years into this career in public accounting, so I've seen a lot. I've got a lot of stories. I'll probably make some good book writing someday of my own. But I think where we're at today, it's an interesting time with the economy change, the political environment, the social environment that's out there. There's a lot of things, as we know, going through Congress today that I'm sure you want to get to at some point.
Yeah.
But you know, when I look at where we're at in my career and helping clients, I see a lot of clients as I started as a base auditor of financial information to where I've moved to a transaction advisor, consultant. I do see a lot of people think about planning, but they stop at thinking about planning. They don't actually get to the planning. And as we talk to clients, they all know they're going to transition out of a business someday.
Right.
And so what we really want to talk to them about and really get them to think harder about what is that going to look like and how do they make the best opportunity for themselves. Because we often get the clients that call, let's say, I just got an LOI, now what do I do? And we could have done something about that a little bit earlier.
So with your decades of experience, and
decades, thanks.
multiple decades, why is it that business owners are reluctant to properly plan for an exit out of the business? Because it's many times it's a huge part of their net worth is the valuation of that business.
That's true, and I think, you know, I'm not a psychologist, but sometimes you got to play one in the consulting side here.
Okay, disclaimer, he's
disclaimer,
not a psychologist.
Playing one on radio.
Right.
People will generally have one built-in excuse, it's time.
Yes.
So finding the time to plan properly and think about the future. I think the other one is really a built-in sense of mortality or morbidity, that transitioning out of that business, especially if you're going to a full retirement age, there is going to be a loss of identity, and then now what do I do?
Right.
And that's probably going to be very hard for a lot of people to face. And I got a few years left, and I got to think about what's that going to mean for me when you stop doing what you do every day because you have transitioned out of the business.
Right. So did you just give us a scoop here? That when you personalized that, are you actually talking about yourself, or you just? Oh,
no, that's general.
You're just speaking about a client. You were just in character.
I'm character.
Because you know the other partners at Haskell White might be going, "Hey, he's thinking about leaving."
No.
All right, now let's a food fight for that job.
No, I'll be here for years.
Okay, well, that's comforting to know. But you work with private companies, but you also work with public companies.
Yeah, I mean, our firm actually works with. We'll say middle market companies, both private and public, and a number of nonprofits. So we do spread our expertise around quite a bit. Our public company practice has been growing for years. We have pre-revenue public companies that are in biotech and other type R&D avenues, up through ones that are in the $500 million range. So we've got quite a range there.
Right.
Our private companies are, similarly sized. Probably our sweet spot is between the 20 and 100 million, but we have some larger certainly, and some that are still in that formative stage, just out of the box, getting going. So the nonprofits we work with in the community, generally they're going to be $2 million budgets and up because they're required to have the audits. But if anybody visited our webpage, we'll give you that address later. We've got relationships with some 40 nonprofits that we either work with as clients or that we provide expertise to boards or otherwise support organizations.
So I'm going to go off script here a little bit, but it's kind of within the question number 2, which is what makes your firm unique and why people do business with you. My sense is, help me understand this way. By having such a diverse client portfolio, are there things you see that public companies are mandated to do that you try to instill as a best practice in private companies? I mean, is there any sharing that way that you and your team see?
Well, I would say certainly, and we have to be careful when we audit a private company. We can't hold them to the same standards as a public company, but there's certainly a lot of the governance activities that you can say have been imposed on public companies, but
Right.
a lot of these are good things that companies need to understand if they're going to grow up, and perhaps maybe some of those private companies rather, will become public companies someday. They need to know about those things.
Right.
I actually think that the nonprofit entities
I was gonna
have a
ask you that
lot of
next.
things that they do really well,
Right.
partly because of mandates coming from other directions. So
Yes.
I think some private companies could probably learn a lot from nonprofit counterparts.
I completely agree. I think especially in the area of strategic development of the brand and of the organization and of the people. I mean, I think there's more genuine thought put into the future of a nonprofit than a similar sized private company.
Well, and what I'll tag on that and say, you need to digest it. I think when you've got a company that sells a product, they're short of introducing new products, they're going to look for new audiences or new ways to market that product. Nonprofits have a mission, but they have to find new money every year.
Yeah.
And so their sales are not sales. Their
Right.
sales are convincing people at a heartstring that they are donating to a cause that those people believe in. It's a totally different mindset to go out and generate the sales revenue, if you will. I knew I just did air quotes, nobody could see that.
Right. Well, they can
oh,
see you
it's
on
up online.
Facebook.
But the sales revenue is going to be totally different for a
Right.
nonprofit. And so they do have to continually reinvent themselves and keep up with causes. And it's not that private companies can't or don't, but there's a different mindset.
Well, we've been doing this program 9 years now, and the change and I just had Janie Best from Women Helping Women here on the radio show WHW, and the move to being able to generate their own revenue, social enterprise, call it what you will, but that has really been empowering for me to see how these nonprofits aren't just waiting for the county or the state or federal money. They're actually out there creating revenue streams on their own that allow them more control.
Well,
over
in some
their
cases,
future.
quite frankly, they've had to because all the government money hasn't been available.
Well, then there's that. Necessity is the mother of invention. All right, we're talking with Wayne Pinnell. He is the managing partner, the El Jefe, if you will, at Haskell and White, right? LLP. What advice are you giving your clients who are either business owners or CEOs of privately held companies? And I don't need to get into an exhaustive. I just like at the top level. What advice are you sharing with them based on what your firm knows so far about what appears to be in the new tax laws?
Right. So my disclaimer is, of course, I'm not the tax guy. I have tax partners and folks that handle that stuff. But, I think the basics still hold true. If we are looking at a lower tax rate for next year, which, just hours ago, the House did vote affirmative to pass the bill with some technicalities. They've got a revote. The Senate might vote tonight. If you're looking at lower tax rates next year, some of the sage advice that's been there year in and year out is still appropriate is defer what revenue you can into 2018 and accelerate the expenses that you can into 2017 so you can reduce your burden this year and have a lesser burden next year. For the upper level folks, one of the things that may be hitting a little harder to Californians and New Yorkers and some of the other higher
Right.
tax states is they are putting some limitations on the deductibility of local taxes such as property and income taxes. So other alternatives might be go ahead and make that April installment payment for your property tax before the end of the year so you can at least get that into 2017 and reduce the non-deductibility, if you will, for the limitation next year. One caution to everybody out there is there still is a sense of alternative minimum tax. So even for individuals,
Oh, there is.
yeah. So
Oh.
even I have it in my return. So even as you go through the calculations, don't let that one sneak up behind you. But I would say, you've only got a couple weeks left to do any solid planning. So
Right.
consult your tax advisor if you don't have one, and we're the right fit for you. Give us a call.
Haskell and White, LLP. All right, we're going to take our first and only short commercial break here on Critical Mass Radio Show. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about kind of how your company provides services, and you're also proactively promoting the success of your clients and kind of how you're working with your firms to grow. Because one of the senses that I've gotten from your brand, and you tell me, I think you're really good with companies that are growing quickly and that are on a path to something different in the future than today. There are a lot of privately held companies that are pretty steady state. Nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, I think lifestyle companies, that's huge. That's wonderful. But fast growth companies, they seem to have a little different mindset and maybe demands of their partners.
They do.
So maybe you can share a little bit of that with our audience when we come back.
Certainly.
Okay, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be right back after this word from me.
If you are an Orange County business executive, this message is for you. Do you ever feel isolated with no place to turn for advice or feedback? Who holds you accountable to your commitments in your company? Where do you find the right resources to help you and your company grow? If you have these questions, then Critical Mass for Business might be the answer for you. Critical Mass for Business is committed to helping you make better decisions. These are groups of peers running businesses just like you, providing a great sounding board to test ideas and concepts, review plans and goals, and present issues and opportunities for discussion. The result is improved strategy, accountability, people, and execution skills. If you are interested in learning more, go to www.criticalmassforbusiness.com and learn more about our executive peer group.
Welcome back to Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host, Richard Franzi. A great way to stay informed about our amazing guests, like Wayne Pinnell, Managing Partner Haskell White, is to sign up for our weekly newsletter. If you go to my website, www.criticalmass4forbusiness.com, at the bottom of any page is a sign up for our newsletter box. If you put your email address in there and hit send, like magic, you'll start receiving just one weekly newsletter on Monday morning that highlights the 2 guests that we have planned, 2 or 4 guests we have planned for that week. We do nothing else with your email. We don't share it any other place. We just put it into the newsletter database. You can opt out of it at any time, but hopefully you won't, because you love the guests that we have here. And this is, like I said, the last show for the year, so you'll be picking up newsletters for 2018. All right, so I kind of set up the question that I wanted to ask you. So tell me a little bit more about, you're the managing partner. Where is the proactive value of Haskell & White and how you help your clients?
Well, I think part of it comes from our organization structure, in that with the 80-some odd people we have, with 11 partners built in there, our partners, first of all, are very active in all of our client engagements. And so when we're working with clients, I think there's a different spin. We could be historians and do the audit. We could be historians and do the tax returns. But the reality is we'd rather help clients plan feverishly for the future, looking 1, 3, 5 years out. And so when we have clients that are thinking about a transition of their business, whether it's through a sale, through a registered offering with a security exchange, there's a lot of planning that goes into that. So we have resources because we've done it before. And we have clients that are in all of those stages, so we can draw upon the experiences from one to another. You mentioned earlier, nonprofits versus public versus private. There's something that you can pick up in our profession from every one of them and bring to the table for another client to use to help them with their growth along the way. So we certainly have to stay abreast of the regulatory environment, tax, SEC, and other, to help clients navigate those waters.
Right.
But there's a lot of things that can be done when companies are going from no revenue to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of revenue. They need counsel at all those stages, and it's not just from us. Sometimes it's us bringing other advisors to the table as well.
Yeah, but you have to have the chops to be able to do that. I mean, a pre-revenue public company that's in some high-tech or biomed space, that's a different psyche, I think, and you really have to be able to deliver them the services. I'm putting words in your mouth, but you tell me. My sense is that's a demanding ask to support
It's a demanding ask, and biotechs are interesting, just as an aside on that, because it takes many, many years and millions upon millions of dollars to get to the point where they have a product.
Yes.
And may or may not make it, right? But they've got to be able to go deal with the market cycles to bring them the money in. So they are marketing a vision. It's probably a little bit like the nonprofit comment I made earlier. They're really marketing a vision for a success that has to be tested, through all the science and everything else. Really hard documents for us to read, by the way, as accountants, but we do get to be in on the ground floor on some of these things and see what it is they're trying to achieve.
Right. And that, in no way am I trying to say a steady state $5 million, $10 million, $20 million manufacturing company that has been making widgets in Orange County successfully for generations isn't a demanding customer as well.
Well, let's face it, there are companies that are niche players they may have command of that niche for whatever reason. It's the price, it's the product, the quality, the service, whatever they have. I don't think a company can stay the same
Right.
for a long time, because I think, if anything, today's economy, fast moving, what we have is if you're not growing, you're probably really shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are companies that are so-called stable. I've had some before that you feel like you go look at the same numbers every year, but they really need to be thinking, again, I'll keep harping on this, is what is really out there 3, 5, 10 years from now, because that product you have today may be serving a niche. That niche may not be there 5, 10 years from now.
Well, in the peer groups that I lead, we've been looking at how technology is disrupting different industries and even down to the job level. Last month in November, I showed them a video of the 15 jobs that are most likely to be taken out by artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Was accounting on the list?
It was,
Yeah.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to lead that into a question about off script. But what's your philosophy on technology inside of Haskell and White?
Well, we try to stay up with technology as best we can, and we certainly don't have the same budgets that our bigger competitive brethren have. So we find that we may be behind, say, the big four,
Mm-hmm.
but we stay up as best we can. That there is a huge thing sneaking its way through the economy, and you hear about the things like Bitcoin and the blockchain and all this stuff, and it's fascinating. It's hard to get your hands and minds around, and our clients, quite frankly, aren't there yet. So I think with anything, it's going to be a trickle down effect, and we'll be there when we need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of learning that's going to happen, and I think we're going to see a lot of things that advance to make accounting, tax reporting, financial reporting stronger, faster, more transparent, to
Right.
Help the end user really make some decisions that they can't necessarily make because of the speed we have today.
We're going to move on to the next question here because we have a few minutes left on Critical Mass Radio Show and Podcast with our guest, Wayne Pinnell, the final guest of the year here in 2017 from Haskell and White. But I have noticed your brand and you personally at a number of organizations' events. Your firm and you seem to sponsor, I'm not asking you for specific names, but I'm really impressed with your level of commitment to the Orange County community where you show up at places helping out organizations by either funding something or sponsoring a table or doing something.
Are you sure this is me or my clone?
I don't know. Yeah, because you seem to be everywhere, right?
So this really goes back to something that one of our founders, Dave White, had said way back. I've been with the firm for 22 years now, and Dave was always very strong about giving back to the community where we work and live, and that's really held strong all these years. The firm's 30 years old in 2018, and it's been doing this quite a long time. Most, if not all, of our partners are involved in at least one organization. Many of our managers are. It's part of our coaching with our managers. You got to get out there. You got to be part of the community. You got to be visible. It's not just trade organizations. It's social causes. It's educational causes. Some of them are actually governmental type causes. So where we can, and it fits what we're supporting because we have a heart for it. I always tell people too, don't go get involved in something because you're going to get business from it. Get involved in it because you want to be there and you understand the mission, you support the mission.
Right.
Business leads may follow someday, but if you're there just to get business and you're not there with a smile on your face doing the work with everybody else, they all get it, and you soil your name and you soil our name, so let's not do it that way.
That's good advice. If I had an engineer, I'd probably say ring the gong, but I don't know that I have an engineer today because he's off doing other things. But wait a minute. Oh, there we go. I'm just teasing him. We tease because we care. The gong, for our loyal listeners, know if you weren't quite tuned into everything, you may want to skip back 30 seconds and pick up Wayne's answer, at least the end of the answer of the questions I just asked him. I know that you're personally involved as a founding member of a newly forming think tank here in Orange County. I wonder if you could share a little bit about this organization that I've heard about called the Center for Business Growth.
Certainly. So what we're trying to put together, actually what we have put together that we're launching here pretty shortly is a new forum for CEOs, owners, C-level people throughout entrepreneurial growing companies that really need to get advice, sit with peers that they can't get through other organizations, because there's many organizations out there that seem to be focused on much larger entities.
Right.
And so there's a lot of smaller companies that can sit around table with like-kind folks and hear about the things they've done, learn from each other, bring things to the table to talk about. But what we're really going to put together is a faculty, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
of advisors from various types of service, marketing, legal, accounting, obviously, to really help them. And where we need to, with the different forums of the events, we'll have outside speakers come in, maybe with some from colleges and universities, possibly political, who knows. Bring those in there so we can create an environment of learning that they can feel like they get something out of, because there's many events out there you can walk away from and not feel like you learned a darn thing.
Right. You were sold something.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's the idea, and it's a good point. The idea here is not to be marketing. Come to our event and buy a service from me.
Right.
Let's grow together and learn from each other, and let's kind of make the world a better place for the middle market entrepreneur.
I'm going to keep my eye on that because, frankly, I think that's sorely missing here in Orange County. I think that a true forum like this, where business owners can come and learn from other business owners and from vetted experts in a non-selling way, is awesome. So
yeah, you mentioned events. I go to a lot of events that are meant to attract the CEOs and owners, but we do see quite a heavy population of service providers all looking for those owners. So.
Yeah. Well, okay. Final question. If someone would like to learn more about Haskell & White, how would they find your firm online, sir?
So online, we're at hwcpa.com. Of course, that's preceded by the infamous www, but you can also track us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on the show. You've been a friend of the program for quite some time. You're a part of the critical mass community, Wayne Pinnell. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Thank you for being our final guest. I've really enjoyed it.
I consider it an honor to be the last guest of the year. That's great.
That's awesome. I'm very excited when you agreed to be on the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go because we're up against our time limit here. I'd like to thank Paul Roberts for another awesome year as engineer, station owner. Boy, if you're ever thinking about doing a podcast or a program, consider octalkradio.net. I'd also like to thank our trio of wonderful producers, Another Year Together with Joan Park, Crystal Nunley, and Haley Stern. If you'd like to connect with me on social media, start with Twitter. I'm CEO Peer Groups on Twitter. On LinkedIn, I'm Richard Franzi, Franzi. My website is criticalmass4forbusiness.com. And until our next show, which will be in 2018, I hope all of your business decisions will move your company in a positive direction.
You have been listening to Critical Mass Radio Show Business Talk Show, focused on exploring topics of interest to CEOs who are leading middle market companies. With your host, Richard Franzi.
Imagine what it would feel like to lose everything. Your job, your home, your family, your dignity. This has happened to thousands of the men, women, veterans, and young adults we serve at Working Wardrobes. What do we do to help? We provide career development services, life